first thing I want to ask you was where you were born and when.
I don't say when.
Okay. Okay, let's start
Everybody
with where.
knows anyway what,
Let's
what
start
is
where. Let's start with where.
the chest?
Well, let's start with where. Where were you born?
Where? Yes. So, can we start?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me where you were born.
I was born in Budapest, which is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It is surrounded with mountains and divided by the Danube. There are beautiful buildings, historical buildings, museums, statues.
So you were born actually in the city?
In Budapest.
Where was your family from? Was your family from the countryside? Or
My family is from little villages. My mother was born in Herend, where the Herend in China is coming
and
from.
What part of Hungary is that? Is that Eastern or Western Hungary? Or?
Western, and my father also. Szabo.
And now, first off, how long, to your recollection, how long had their families been in Hungary?
That's what I don't know.
You're not sure?
I have no idea.
Okay.
My mother and my father, they were born in Hungary, but grandparents, I didn't know anybody. But I assume they were also in Hungarian.
And okay.
In Hungary.
How did they meet? How did your parents meet? Do you know?
What?
Do you know how your parents met?
Yes. As I know, one of my mother's brother was also working at the post office. My father was at the post office also, and so in Budapest they got together.
And so that's how.
Through this the same.
Okay.
The same, what?
So your father was friends with her brother.
Yeah.
At the post office in the Senate.
Yes.
And so, did your parents? What kind of education did your parents have? I'm curious.
My father finished gymnasium.
Okay, that's high school, right?
That is the high school, and then he went to the post office. He became one of the directors of the post office, which is very strange being a Jew.
Uh-huh.
Because that time it was numerus clausus in every phase of the Hungarian government.
Now, about what time was that? What period was that?
It was 1913, 14,
okay, so
20.
Around the First World War.
Yes.
Okay, and your mother, what did she do?
My mother's father was also a post inherent. He was the postmaster. He was the postmaster. Our family, most of the members of the family were working at the post office.
How?
My brother was a high official at the post office, where they made stamps.
Right.
Yes.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have two brothers, but one of the elder brother passed away when he was 29 years old. He has cancer. And you know my brother, Paul.
Now,
what about him?
Well, okay. What Polly came? When did? Well, we can get to that. I mean, later. No, that's okay.
No, first.
Tell me about your parents. Tell me about your father. What are your memories about your father? Did you say he used to take you hiking?
Yes, and he was a ardent member of the Masonic Lodge.
Uh-huh.
Mason. He was a secretary of the Haladáš Mason, which is progress, means progress, Haladáš. And he used to go every Thursday to the to the
To the meeting.
to the Masons, and we kids we were very happy because that we could play whatever he wanted. He was very strict man.
Uh-huh.
We were afraid of him. Thursday was our day. We loved that. Yeah.
But didn't you say he liked the outdoors? And
Yes, yes. Every Sunday he took us to the mountains, and we were walking, and as I wrote it, that he taught us swimming. Himself he could not swim.
Well, how did he do that?
He just explained it how to swim.
and then you learned how to
and
swim.
then every summer we went to the Balaton, to the lake.
Did you have a house there?
No, we just rented a part of a peasant's house.
Right.
We were living with the peasants. Kovács was the peasant name, and every year we went there, the same place, Balatonberén. Balatonberén, it was the name of that little village where we were every summer. So, and then we went to the Balaton, to the lake, swimming every day. It was very nice, very happy.
And did your mother came as well on your work? You were talking about.
No, it's okay.
You were talking about before we were interrupted by the battery. Your summer at your summers that used to go. Do you for how long did you go? 10 years or 5 years, or in terms of how many times you went?
Oh, probably 8 years or so. I don't know exactly, but I know that many years we went there. And I think that was 1913 when the war broke out, and there was a count, I don't remember the name of that count, and he told everybody who was there, for the summer, told that what happened, that is that the war broke out, and my father had to leave immediately and go back to the post office, and we left also for Budapest, and then how many years the war, the emperor Franz Joseph, he said that it was summer, and that when the leaves will fall down at fall everybody will be home, and the war lasted 4 or 5 years. Yeah, it was terrible.
Now, what can you remember about that period, about your Jewish upbringing? Were you raised very Jewish like, or?
No, we were not very religious. Just we observed the holidays, every holiday. So then we went to the temple. My father was the whole day there, just like your father, your grandfather.
Yeah.
And I remember the Passover is the best one, because the whole family was invited to us, and my father had a beautiful Passover evening.
The Seder.
The Seder, beautiful. I never forget that. And Yom Kippur, my mother and then my father, they were the whole day in the temple. I was with them, not the whole day, but some. But we didn't go to temple every Friday or Saturday. It was religious classes. They were every week.
Oh.
It was religious teaching.
Like Hebrew school.
Yeah, that was Hebrew school at the school.
Uh-huh. You mean
The Jewish people
in the public school there was Christian?
in the public school that was at Christian. They had not anymore. That before the war.
Right.
During the war, after it's ceased, not anymore. And so I went to the music conservatory over more than 10 years, studied violin.
Right.
My brother too, Paul.
Oh.
My brother died 19
Just a couple years ago.
1930 or 31.
Oh, your
My brother.
other brother.
Yes. And
your parents?
my father died within 10 days. He never was sick, but suddenly went home from the conservatory, and I saw my father was in the bed, snow white and terrible sick. They took him next day to the hospital. The chief doctor was our relative, and they did everything what they could, but my father passed away in 10 days. Something, a vein broke behind the liver. They said that one in the million years happened something like this, that they couldn't operate anyway. And so after that,
Do you remember when that was?
Or how old he was?
it could have been 1924 or 25. And then I decided that I don't want to go anymore to the conservatory. I want to work.
Uh-huh.
And I graduated gymnasium.
Right.
And after I went to in an office where I met my future husband.
So he was in the same office.
He was in executive
That
at
was
the
in
same
the
office,
Yep.
and that was my happiest year in my life.
Now what kind of office was it? What was the work?
That was a big store. It's they called elszakíthatatlan. Gutman elszakíthatatlan. That means you cannot tear it away. 3 men. I saw it in America too. The same advertising. Must have been at a store here just like that.
What is that?
3 men pulling one pants on one way, other 3 men pulling the other part of the pants the other way,
Right.
and they could not tear it.
So it's quality clothing or something.
Quality clothing, yes. And that was the owner was my father's one of the best friend,
Okay.
my father's best friend, and so I could go there to work. And
Now I'm curious. Were the owners and most of the people who worked there was it a Jewish business?
oh
or?
sure,
Okay.
oh yes, everybody
Jewish,
was
okay.
Jewish.
Okay.
Yes, and I just worked there 1.5 years.
And your husband was like an executive there, and was he much older than you, or?
Yes, 14 years.
Oh, so he's older.
But that doesn't make any difference to me. I loved him very much.
I
I
can
was
see that.
madly in love with him.
And when were you married?
In 1929 we were married. 1929.
And
It
he.
was a big event.
Sorry. When? So, do you remember the date? Do you remember the day? or-
May 19.
Okay. And do you remember what was the day like?
Beautiful. Really, it was a very beautiful day.
Were there a lot of people there?
Yes. we just have we just had the civil wedding,
Right.
civil service
Ceremony.
wedding ceremony, because that time it could not be a religious ceremony because that was a certain time. I don't know how to call it in Jewish, Tisha B'Av or something.
Yeah.
That you could not be married in the temple.
Huh. Okay.
So we got married, and there was a beautiful hotel. It was a reception there. Lots of people were.
And was this in Budapest?
That was everything in Budapest. And then we went on honeymoon to Abbazzia. That is not Italy, but that time it still was Hungary, the ocean.
Okay, Italy. Okay, not
Now
Yugoslavia.
it belongs to Italy
Okay.
or Yugoslavia. I don't know. I think Italy, but that was Hungary, Abbazzia, and Vienna. So when I was already pregnant with Eve, then we had a religious ceremony in our apartment. Yes. Because my husband, he was a very good Jew. He was very, very good Jew.
And where was he from? Was he born and raised in Budapest, or was he?
Yes, also. Yes. And his father too, but I don't know. Unfortunately, anything about grandparents or great grandparents, I don't know anything. Where did they come from? And I am very sorry if I'm thinking back that I never asked my parents. It never even occurred to me to ask where they coming from, their parents, you know.
Right.
I didn't know anybody. Everybody was dead already, but
Now, I've heard the stories. Now, my grandfather, your husband, fought in World War One.
yes. His father had owned a big factory, men clothing factory. He was a rich man, and my husband was drafted, and he was an officer. Maybe you saw pictures on a horse.
I
You
don't
must
know.
have seen picture.
Yes.
Then he has an album, and there is a very handsome officer. He spent 3 years in the Russian front, and other 3 years in Siberia.
Wow.
So it took 6 years to come back. And as I told you yesterday, that his father died because of the grief, but he had only son. They had 3 daughters and 1 son, the favorite son. When he came back, they were broke entirely because Daniel, the grandfather, was such a big Hungarian that he put all his money in the bonds, the Hungarian bonds, you know.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of forints. And when the war ended, it was one of my sisters-in-law used to tell me that she inherited 100,000 forints from the father, from the parent, and she could buy just a lamb for that money. That was her inheritance.
In the early 20s, right? There was a period.
Yes, that must have been about
was-
the 20s, yes.
Now, there's a story.
20 years, yes.
There's a story about when your husband came home from the war. They had a dog.
Yes. And I knew the name, but I forgot the dog.
What kind of dog
It
was
was a shepherd, just like Eve has.
A German
A
Shepherd.
German shepherd. Beautiful dog. I saw the picture. And when he came home. Nobody knew it that he is coming home. He was on the street and the dog started to whine and scratch on the door, wanted to run to. He felt that, he's coming. That was beautiful.
Did he jump out of the window or something?
No.
I thought about the dog. Don't remember that story of the dog
No.
jumps out.
No.
What did he ever say anything about being in Siberia? What that was like? Or?
Yes, he told me, but I don't remember too much. Just he
general.
said that it is so terrible. It was so terrible cold that milk. If they had milk, they had to cut it with a axe. That was the milk. And if somebody went out, fell off the ears or nose or something, it was unbelievable cold in Siberia. Terrible. And then, but they were the officers, That time they respected the Russians. The officers, they never worked.
Huh.
During these 3 years, they didn't work.
Interesting.
Yes, but they played theater. Some officer played women, Yeah, that's what I can remember. Then he came back on a Japanese boat, maru, some kind of maru. All the Japanese boat they called some kind of maru, but I don't know what was the first name.
And so then you met in the office and you were married in 29.
Yes.
And then you had Eve.
I mean,
You had 2 children.
we married in May, and I had Eve was born in March, next year March. And after 3 years after, Danny was also in March because I don't know, my husband wanted this way that they should be born in spring.
Uh-huh. Well, that's nice.
It was planned
Planned Parenthood.
parenthood.
So then, were you working in this period? Were you working in a textile business in this period, or in the,
After.
in the 30s?
After, that was a long time after, it was after World War
So after the
Two.
Second World.
After the World War
So
II.
I don't want to
That
get.
was a very big, 20 years later.
I don't want to get quite to that. What do you remember about? I don't know, about raising kids. I mean, did you bring? I'm just curious. Did you bring them up religiously, or and then, what do you remember about trouble they got into, or?
Poor kids. But I remember that we used to live in. You saw the house, Bujovsky Utsa. You saw the house, and also that was a relative. My husband's uncle, Klein Berthold, and he started. He was a very poor kid, and to work for the Goldberger factory. There's a huge, one of the Hungary's biggest factory. Materials they made, and then I don't know how. Whenever he had some money, he bought plots and houses. Allegedly, you could buy very cheap. I don't know how, but he bought, at the end it was 24 houses he owned. The same time when my husband's father put his money into this Hungarian bonds. And he became one of the richest men in Budapest. After the war, they still had 18 houses. But nobody was already in Hungary. The heirs and heiresses, they all left Hungary in 1939.
Who was this?
Who owned the children, the girls. You know, they were two girls who inherited these houses from the Klein Berthold,
Right.
the girls. And they were married and had children, and they all left the country before the war,
And you-
1939.
And you were living in one of their houses.
Yes. One of the girls, one of the daughter was Marianne. You know that Naiman Yanchi, John Naiman, who was a scientist, was an assistant to Einstein. Very, very clever. And I saw that on television when he was invited to the White House. But then he was already in wheelchair,
Right.
became very sick, and he died. Yeah, but his daughter, Danny told me that he was working for I don't know, Nixon or who.
Ah.
Did you hear that?
No,
That
I don't.
girl? No.
So
Yes.
what do you remember about the 30s about Eve and my father? You know, raising them. I mean, are there any horrible, awful things that they did? Or
Funny.
I know I'm joking, but I mean, you know, funny things or
Oh,
I don't know,
yes.
that stand out. You know.
We used to go for summer, 1 or 2 summers. We went up to the Schwabhegg. That is mountain, Schwab mountain. The name of that Schwabhegg, you
Sure.
know. And one of the relatives, this Klein Berthold, you know, they owned there a villa up on the mountain. But they were already out of the country, so we went there for summer. And it was wonderful. That was beautiful. And Danny, one of these days, I was looking for Danny, and I couldn't find him, despite that we had a very huge park, a garden and everything. And finally, I found him at how do you call that? This is you know, from the city you could go up by train,
Yeah.
but the train has,
The cogs sort of.
how do you call that? Has a fogaskerekű Hungarian. Then he will tell you. Maybe you can translate it.
Tracks. The tracks?
Track.
I think it was like one of those cog wheel
Yes,
kinds of things that goes up.
yes, it
goes up a mountain.
went back to the mountain,
So
the last
so where
stop,
was it?
and workers were working there, you know, with this lamp, you know, the
Blowtorch.
Hmm?
Blowtorch.
blowtorch, with a blowtorch, and they had the goggles. Then he had nothing. He was standing there and watching them a long time. And then I found him, you know, I took him immediately. He nearly got blind there.
Huh.
Yes, he had to stay in a dark room, I don't know, for 2 or 3 days. It was terrible, terrible.
Um. no.
One day we had green beans for lunch, and suddenly he nearly suffocated on it, you know. And I just I don't know how did I do it, but I took back the bean,
Right,
you know.
out of his mouth.
I saved him. He's like twice already.
Probably several times more than that.
Yes, he was, but he was a very lovely, handsome young kid. Eve didn't have any problem with her. But then, you know, came the
No, wait.
Nazi era, that was then really terrible.
Now, there's a story about my father didn't like spinach.
No, he didn't like spinach. He didn't like spinach, and the doctor said if he doesn't eat it for lunch, he has to eat it for dinner. The same thing. And he was spitting toward the ceiling. He ate it so much. Terrible.
Kind of runs in the
That
family.
was terrible with the spinach. Never forget that.
So,
He was very skinny.
was.
He was very skinny.
So what do you, just to get back, just what you just said, what do you remember about sort of the beginning of the Nazi period in the 30s? What did life gradually become more difficult for Jews? I mean, what do you remember about?
Yes,
I mean,
it
there's so
started
many
with the
things.
started with the numerus clausus. Numerus clausus means that a certain amount of Jews could go to school, to the university. It was nearly impossible. All my friends, they went to Italy. Mussolini was very good in this respect. And Vienna, for universities,
Right.
because Hungary. And I had an uncle who was a world famous scientist.
Don't remember
What
his
is his name? Ignaz. Pfeiffer Ignaz. Pfeiffer Ignaz. He was here already, invited also in America, but he couldn't stay here because he had a very sick wife. The sickness came from, they had one son, a beautiful, handsome son, and then came the World War, and my uncle said that where other boys go to the war, his son has to go too. He could have arranged that he should not go to the war.
Huh.
He could
But he
get
felt-
some job for him, but he didn't do it. And one day they were in the, how do you call that, in the war, that time there were this árok,
bunker or trench?
trench, and he heard one of his friend got hurt, and he jumped out of this trench and wanted to bring back the boy, and he got they hit on the head,
Shot or?
shot on the head, the Russians, or the Russians.
Yeah, because they were fighting on the side. They were fighting with the Germans.
The Germans, the Russians,
Right.
also.
But they fought. They fought with the Germans against the Russians.
Yeah.
At that.
Yeah.
But
With the Austrian, German.
what do you remember about in your daily life about life becoming more difficult for Jewish people in the 30s?
In the 30s. We didn't feel too much in the 30s. Later, because 35, 36, 37, every time they brought newest law against, restrictions against the Jews. Restriction. Job, school, everywhere. And store owners, Jewish people could not have stores. So they had to take a Christian man,
Right, and give him the name.
the name,
Right.
and yes. But my husband was like a hero, from the World War I. And he was exception. He was one of the exception who could have had the store. He could keep
Huh.
the store
I never knew.
because of that. Yes, and when he passed away, I, as his widow, I could have it just. I never worked in the store, but anyway, I took it over, and I was pretty prosperous in the store. But when the Nazis came, rather not the Nazis, but the German Nazis came in March 1944, and the next days we had to close the store. Everybody, all the Jews, had to close the stores, and we went into hiding.
Now, I had a question about, was there a period, did your family change their name or something? About, I don't know.
Not a name, but a religion.
Okay.
Religion.
Well, now, what's the story with the three aunts? Your husband's three sisters were very devout Catholic or something like that, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. One of my sister-in-law's husband, Lengyel Miklós, he converted 1919 because of his job. He had to. And when they got married, my sister-in-law converted too. She was the first one. And Margaret and the second one, they converted maybe 1938 or 37 or 38, and became very religious, very Catholic, very Catholic. Every day they went to the temple, to church. And the Elizabeth also, which, you know, whom I was talking before, that she was, she converted, I don't know, whenever she got married, I don't know when exactly. These two girls, they were very, very religious. They went every day to the church. They confessed and whatever.
So now, but my father was pretty much raised as a Catholic then.
Your father, because these two sisters-in-law, they insisted on that we should convert.
Why?
Because they said if you want to save your children, you have to convert. And that happened 1939. We converted, and that's the way that we could survive anyway.
Oh, so
But my husband, he was a very good Jew, and he went every Friday to the temple. You saw that Dohány utca temple, this beautiful temple in the center of the city. He went there every Friday. But when we converted, he never went neither to Jewish temple nor the Christian church, never. But we became. I like to go to the Christian church.
because of the music.
I loved it. Then I became very friendly with the organist who played the organ, and with his wife, and that was our luck, because when we had to go hiding, they gave us very good Christian papers, the parents' papers.
Right, these are the Faludis?
Follow
Follow
this. Yes, they gave the paper. I could take out my mother from the ghetto. She was already in the ghetto, and took her where I was hiding. I wasn't even hiding. I was staying in a house. There was also a relative's house, you know. But Super was working there for lifetime.
Right.
And they knew me very well, and they got a room for me. I had my Christian name and the papers, and
What
the
was
ration for
card?
the food. How do you say?
Ration card or
Ration
food
card,
ticket
yeah.
or stuff?
Yes, which just Christians could get. Jewish people didn't get.
What was your name? Do you remember the name? Do you remember the name, the Christian name
Who's
that you said?
now?
You
I don't remember.
good.
That's a shame.
Um,
I don't remember, but I could find out if you want to later on.
what I'm curious, what was your? I mean, when did you? Do you remember when you made the decision that you wanted to convert,
39.
or do you remember why? Did you discuss it with your husband? Was he angry
Yes,
about it? Was
he was very much against it, but he had to agree that being a Jew, it was a terrible burden. We just couldn't live with
What
it.
did people do?
What?
What did people do? Why was it a burden?
Why was it a burden? I mean, what did people? I mean, laws or
Every aspect of their life. That time it was impossible. You cannot imagine because I cannot imagine anymore myself. But the kids they went to school like Christians, and I don't remember anymore. What?
So now, do you remember my father working or whatever? He was an altar boy, right?
Tony?
My father at the church.
That I don't remember.
Yeah.
It's possible, but
Yeah,
I
that's
really
his
don't
story.
remember.
Yeah, that's his story.
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we take a short break and just rest
Can
a
you
little bit.
can you replay it?
Hit the
Can you replay it?
rolling.
Okay, well, I think what I'd like to start with is just the year before the war, and just mention to me some important events that happened then, and just the feeling living in Budapest right before the Nazis came in, and whether you felt things were changing, and then we'll talk about when the Nazis first came
Yes.
in.
My husband had a wholesale textile store. I didn't work there. My sister-in-law, Yanchi, was in. And one day he left, and a relative was in the store who was a customer at the same time. And he was, as usual, he was always joking. He had a very good sense of humor. And he was telling jokes to his nephew, and suddenly he just passed away. Suddenly, 1 second, and he just died
How old was he?
at the store. He was 52. And what I told already Peter, that the law was Jewish people couldn't have any business anymore, because the Hungarian Nazis, they were much worse than the Nazis themselves. And but Shandy was a officer in the World War I. He was 3 years at the front, the Russian front, and 3 years in Siberia as a prisoner of war. So he was accepted from this law,
Exempted.
exempted from the from this line, which he could have opened as store. But after, when he passed away, just his widow could have this store. And my sister-in-law didn't wanted that we should close the store, but I insisted on that. I want to keep it open, because she said that I should sew instead. But I said to her that I could not even earn the cold water with my sewing. Yes, and I became very prosperous. It was big black market with the materials, the textile, very scarce.
How did you get them? How did you get
They
them?
were the factories. They were the factories and wholesale store. We went to the factory and there was some kind of a ration. You could not get as much as you wanted. Just you got some, and we had mostly material for the peasants. The jean, what you can make, what they make now from the jean, that was, how do you call that?
Denim.
Denim. And that was the best thing that I had because after the war, when I went down to bring food, I had the denim and other for the peasants exchange it. There was no money then involved, just exchanging. Barter, you say. And it was very dangerous. We just sold it, the material, for $4. That was if they caught somebody they're dealing with $1, it was
Death penalty?
death penalty. But we had to because we bought the material in the morning and afternoon you could not buy it back anymore. It was such a terrible inflation. Unbelievable big inflation. So that's why I was prosperous, because the dollar went up, and we could, I remember what happened once. I had $10 I had in my glove, because you had to, you could not keep it in your pocket book. I went home. I don't know if I should tell. I had to go to the toilet. And then put off the gloves very fast, and when I came out, I realized that the $10 went down the toll. Yes, accidentally. And you know what? $10 was so much that you could, a family could live on for a whole week. So you can imagine, I was terrible upset, screaming and crying. Anyway, but we survived anyway.
Did you?
My husband died in April 1943. So 1 year I had the store, and when the Nazis came in March 1944, the next day we had to close the store, everywhere, all the Jewish people. There was no exception, no exemption anymore. I didn't do anything then. We were talking about that we converted, and this nice couple, they really saved our lives, because Magdi gave me her mother's birthday certificate, who was a long time dead, and her sister's birth certificate for me, and I don't remember what was the name. I'm very sorry. I didn't have to wear the yellow star, because I had the false paper, which was very good. So because Jewish people could not leave home certain hours. When the Christian people bought already in the stores, the food and everything, then the Jewish people could go out 1 hour or 2 hours. That was all. I went out all the time, because I just had to save my family. And there was a opposite where we lived there was so-called üvegház, that means the glass house, where, what was this name, this Swede,
Wallenberg. Wallenberg.
Wallenberg.
Wallenberg. He was there, Wallenberg, and he gave out the people the Swedish passport. Yeah, and people were standing in line by thousands, and mounted police, they went into the crowd, you know, because they knew that they are Jewish people. And I was told that if you go in, you cannot, you should not come out until you don't have these certificates, because you cannot get into any more. So I spent the whole night there, and I got paper for my mother, for us, for my brother, who was in the work,
Workers camp.
yeah, working camp,
Workers camp.
workers camp,
Mhm.
yeah. And I sent it to him. He was out of Budapest somewhere, but the man whom I sent came back, and he said that they took him back to Budapest. I was terribly upset, because from Budapest they took lots of people. They could to Auschwitz, and I don't know, with the trains, you know, these freight trains. I went there. There was a arena. There was a school, and a huge yard. Couldn't get in, and there was a very nice soldier, a young man, and he came to me and asked whom I am looking for, and I said, Biro Pál. He said, wait a minute, I will check on him, and he went back. Came back again, and he said that he was just here in Budapest just one day. They took him back again. It was very dangerous, because from there, when Polly arrived there, I don't know, the next day or when they took the people into Austria and then different concentration camps. But he escaped. And he was hiding throughout the war at a peasant family. They were very good to him, yes. So he was saved, thank God. And yes, it was always, we had to go down to the cellar, you know, that is a
Of your house?
shelter. They called it shelter, but that was the cellar.
Yeah. Now, did Danny and Eve have papers, or what?
Yes, they had also papers, but Eve wasn't so lucky than Danny, because I had to take Eve for 11 places before the Russian came. 11 places, from one place to the other. Always something happened.
What do you mean? You mean hiding? or-
Hiding.
Okay.
Yes, hiding. To a family, very good friends. They went downstairs to the shelter, and a girl, as a schoolmate of Eve, recognized her and started to shout that this is a Szabo Irma, because she had on another name hiding there. This is Szabo Irma, so we had to take her from there, because it was very dangerous that they would take away from her. She I don't know how many more places, and she was also at the where the nuns are, monastery, but that was in Budapest. And she could stay there until just before Christmas, because there was a big announcement all the converted kids should leave the convent the next day. So we had to take her also out. And then we took her to the Csengeryutca. There was the house was also a relative's house, and they were relatives hiding there too. So I took her there, and the siege. You know, always the bombs came. Either the Germans or the Americans or the English. They all bombed Hungary, and we always asked for more bombing, because the more they bombed, you know, the sooner would end the war. And then he was at a orphans home, just the next street where I was hiding, the next street. I always had to go to my children, take some little food what we had or some money. I remember that it took very long time to get to Danny, because the bombs fell. Always had to hide, go into a house, you know, waiting until the bomb ended. And there were also the Hungarian soldiers. They were hiding behind the door. The same time, the German soldiers, they were marching in the middle of the street, and like they wouldn't be live soldiers, you know, despite of the bomb and everything. That's why they could be so. The whole world, they could conquer the whole world, half world. When I arrived at Danny, the house was bombed down, where Danny was supposed to be. And so you can imagine how I felt. But they said that the people who survived, they are in the shelter. So I went down to the shelter. It was dark. Just a few candles. Maybe 160 or how many people were hiding there, crying and everything. And suddenly I heard that, "Mother," you know, I was the happiest mother in the whole world. I wanted to leave him there, but he started to tell me that he will die if I am leaving him there alone. And I was a spinster. I wasn't a married woman according to my papers. And to take him to the house, you know, it was very dangerous. My mother was already there. I took her out from the ghetto. But then he didn't want to stay there, so I had to take there. And I said, he is my godchild. They say godchild. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he always called me mother and called my mother granny. It was very dangerous. It was very dangerous. But we were lucky, thank God. So one day I felt that I have to go to see Eve. And she was hiding in the other end of the city. It took me 2 hours to get there. Naturally, the bombs, they fell and everything, and I saw dead soldier who wanted the rifle in his hand. It was entirely gray, his face, it was terrible, and dead horses on the street, it was awful. I had to go to my Eve, and when I arrived there, she didn't want to let me go back again, and she said the same thing what Danny said, that she would die if I would leave her there. I stayed there overnight, and she was lucky enough because the next day the Russians came in. We just saw through, there were windows, at the shelter, and we saw that they looked like bombs. They looked like animals. These Russians, terrible.
So all three of you were together.
Two of us.
Well, you and Danny.
Danny was with my mother, was on the other side of the city, where I was hiding, and that was the next street from where Danny was originally, But I left him with my mother, and we went into a little place there at the shelter. We were staying there till next morning, and then, I forgot to tell you that. So the Russians came, and people were collecting money because there were certain women who were very happy to be with the Russian soldiers. So we paid these women, and the night in the shelter they put up a long table, and the soldiers were making orgy, and drinking and everything. We were hungry. We were sitting in the back, more than 100 people sitting in the dark. I wanted to get some food for myself and for Eve, and went toward the Russians, the table. They were pails of rice, and I just remember of the rice. And then a soldier came and started to be very friendly with me. And I said, I have my daughter in the other room. And I started to walk back, and he followed me. So I was terribly upset, and when I arrived in the other part of the shelter, they were sitting about more than 100 people. They would not lift a finger to save my daughter, because the soldier, when he saw Eve, she was so beautiful, 13 or 14 years old, big eyes, and red face, and she was very frightened, beautiful. And he was looking at her face. So I pushed him, the soldier, and he fell on the floor and fell asleep down there, fell asleep. We were running like mad to the other part of the shelter, and the relatives, they gave us a little piece, very dark. So we spent the night there, and the next morning we started to walk back to the place, to so-called Ülői Street. But we saw terrible things, that people were breaking in stores, and they were robbing everything. They're taking out what it was possible. I couldn't even, and they were Hungarians, not Russians. Yeah. So I didn't know if Danny and my mother alive, or what happened to them during these 2 days. I was terribly afraid. And when we arrived, I saw from far away that Danny was sweeping the snow in the street. Just for, nobody made him sweep, just he wanted to do, fun. So we survived, thank God. And then we went back to Arany János utca, but couldn't go up to our apartment because the Christian family who moved in, they stayed a long time, I don't know how many weeks. We still had to, we spent 7 weeks in the shelter. I got pneumonia. I was sick there. And it's very interesting that there was a everybody, you know, that was very dark in this shelter. We had maybe a candle. That is the most, if somebody had a candle. And the family was there. The man was an engineer. And he built on a wire a light, you know, electric bulb. Russian came down. Mostly they said that if they took girls, they said that they want to peel potatoes. That's why they should go, peel potatoes. So that part of the shelter was very lightly, very brightly lighted, lit. They took away the girl and never came back. The girl, God knows, you can imagine what happened to this girl. Poor girl. Anyway.
What I guess I have two questions. Did you ever, just to get back, did you ever see Wallenberg or?
Never. And that was interesting. My sister-in-law, Yanchi, you know Yanchi, Yanka, Yanchi. She had a wristwatch from the husband, I don't know, 25 or 30 years, precious watch. And she walked up the shelter and the Russian came down and saw the watch and immediately said, "Davai, davai." And she didn't want to give it, and she nearly, they killed her because of this watch. But she had to give it to him anyway. So finally we could go up. There was no window. Because, you know, that the bomb said that it was broken. It was January.
You mean to your apartment?
Yeah.
Apartment, everybody's apartment, the windows were out. So you can imagine it was cold there too. Yeah. And hungry. So then that was when Danny said that, "Mother, I would like to eat just bread and butter just as much as I could." So that's why I left then and I went. Oh, I didn't tell yet. You just read that story
Yeah.
of freight or freighter, freight, the freight train, full with Russian soldiers. But I went with my brother and a nephew of mine. And one station, the train stopped and we had to get out, waiting for another train, a long time. And suddenly somebody said that the Russians coming. They took people to work in Russia. We had a relative who didn't come back until 9 years later. They took him. They didn't know anything about him, if he's dead or alive. Yeah, that was those times. And everybody started to run wherever they could. My brother and nephew, they ran and they ran, and I was running after them, but suddenly they disappeared. And I found myself in a churchyard, and that was high fence. And at the top of the fence there were some big nails, you know, nails like. And I climbed up. I climbed up, but I couldn't come. I was hanging there. I just couldn't go get on the other side. And I was hanging there. Suddenly I saw that a Russian soldier came with a rifle, and the rifle, on the top of the rifle there was a bayonet. You know what bayonet is? Bayonet. I thought that is my last minute, you know. And he was playing under my nose, but he finally realized that this is a woman. I wore my husband's pants, gray pants, and an Eisenhower jacket, and my head was covered with something, I don't even with what. He turned around and left me there, hanging there. But I climbed on. No,
Climbed over?
Tommy?
Climbed over.
Yes, yes, and then I ran into a house, and I saw lots of people were hiding in behind the door, and then when we thought that the Russians left already, so we went again to the train, and with the next train we left deeper down there, and the peasants they were wonderful to me, wonderful, that I could get so many things, unbelievable.
Where was this? Where did you go?
I don't know the place, I don't know the name. Just to know that southern Hungary, where these peasants, they didn't feel, they were never hungry. They had everything. I never saw, for a few months, I never saw bread like this, but the peasant I saw, it was huge, beautiful white bread. That's what they ate when we were nearly dying from hunger. Yes, and so I went back.
Now, when did you hear anything about the camps at all when you were in Budapest? About concentration camps?
No. We didn't know where did they put these people, where did they take the people. Just after the war we found out. We didn't know anything. That was the tragedy, because the people whom they took, they didn't know where they taking them either. We had relatives on the western part of Hungary, and it was a well-to-do man. His wife was my cousin and had 2 little children. They had to leave their home and to the neighboring village, because they collected the Jews there, and they were so good to them, to the peasants, and they told us in Budapest how wonderful there they are. But one day they took them to Auschwitz, and they took immediately on the, I don't know, right side or the left side, and to the gas chamber. Everybody, the little children and mother, never came back.
So most of your family and your husband's family was taken away, or
who lived in the country, and not Budapest was better to hide, for hiding, but in the country they could not hide. No hide. We had about 60 members, family and friends, who were killed. Yes.
In the concentration camp.
Everywhere, yeah. Some people they just shot into the Danube. They didn't even bother to take them out of the country. Yeah. Terrible times, terrible.
So you just getting back to your other story, you got a lot of food.
Yes, and
How-
then Danny
How
was
How much did you bring back?
100 pounds. And I weighed 90 pounds myself. Now I weigh 110. But Danny was very, very happy. Oh, he could eat whatever he wanted. And I went again, but the second time I didn't bring so much, but the first time that was unforgettable.
God. Amazing.
Yes. And my brother came back, and the nephew, but they hardly brought anything home. I had these good peasants materials, and for shirt material and everything I could exchange. That was very good that time. And then after, when we were deliberated, I opened the store in the heart of the city. You know the place. Danny, I am sure that Danny showed you where the Nivo,
What's the street?
Right.
What street was that?
Régi Posta utca. Régi Posta utca, it's called Hungarian.
Near the
Old Post Street.
is it near the dessert place or the coffee place? Where do we go? They had those great little desserts.
The outdoor cafe that we went to near.
Oh,
Was it near there?
It was near the Neo.
yes. A Váci utca.
Yeah.
That was the Váci utca, yes. A Váci utca and the Régi Posta utca corner was the store. Now there's a gorgeous, beautiful building. They built there, beautiful building. And there is a fountain in the front, very nice. We had the material in the store. We sold material, and up on the second floor there was a workshop. Eve worked there too. Eve, she finished already school, and she has the master degree. Master certificate from sewing, and graduated from gymnasium at the same time. And who bought the material and wanted to make a dress, and went up, and I had very lovely dresses from there. And some I could bring here, and that's why I could become a cutter, because I not only made a pattern from my dress, but I cut it and sew it. And I was there, I loved it. That was my happiest 1.5 or 2 years when I was a cutter. Qualitex dresses, blouses and dresses, that was the name of that
In New York.
in New York.
Now,
That was a long way from Budapest.
yeah.
And from
Well, that's sort of. What about? I mean, do you remember anything? Just for my interest, about the changing political sort of climate right after the war? I mean, what kind of government was there initially, and do you remember things that happened?
there was a socialist government.
Mhm.
Socialist government, and everybody joined the Socialist Party. Me too. And then
I'm sorry. Were they known as good people, or I mean, why did everyone join the Socialist Party? Was it? I mean, did people like the people who were in the party, or the
that
party
was
government?
that was good.
Yeah.
That was good at the beginning. It was very good, but later on it became worse and worse politically. You could go voting, that was so ridiculous when we went voting. The policemen took everybody from the house, had to go to vote for just one party. Just that's what we were voting. And I remember that one day my mother told me that people were there in our apartment, wanted to talk to me, from the Communist Party, and they will come back on Saturday. And they came back.
Right.
And wanted me to join the Communist Party. I said, I'm sorry. I said, I have relatives in America, I cannot do that. I had nobody I knew about. And I knew that I must have been on the blacklist from now on, because you just cannot refuse it at the party. So it was like somebody comes from heaven, from the heaven, when Emery came to Budapest in 1949, June, because he was an American citizen. That was, if it would be, who Beelzebub was?
Devil.
Huh?
The devil.
The devil is Beelzebub. would have been I would marry him because he was an American. That is, my girlfriend said that nowadays there is no fairy tale. She thought that is impossible, that fairy tale. Then she must have then known that it was fairy tale. It happened. But he wanted to marry when I was 13 years old.
Oh, you knew him.
We were very good friends, and my sisters-in-law, they were my best friends in Buda, where we used to live. He wanted to marry me. And my mother said, my daughter is very young. Now when he married me, when I was 40, I don't know how much, 45 or how much, with 2 children, he said, now your mother doesn't say now that you are very young.
Oh.
I said, no, he wouldn't say. He didn't say. Anyway.
Do you want to take a break?
Yeah.
Let's take a break.
Okay, darling.
It's on.
Okay.
All right. So you were just saying when did you get married?
We got married on 15th of July 1949. And after 2 weeks, Emery went back with the Arlberg Express. We had to escape.
Or when did you I mean, did you know when you married Emery you said, all right, we're gonna leave?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I know that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be any sense to marry him.
Right.
Why did you want to leave?
End of August, we left Hungary.
Okay. What happened between the time you were married and the end of August? What kind of plans were made?
Yes, a friend of mine arranged our escape with the guides and everything. A girl came with us, and so everything was wonderfully arranged.
So you approached this friend and you said, I would like to leave, or
Yes, that was my only friend, Kemény Oscar, who I could trust, and he had also textile wholesale business, and he had an employee who had a friend up New York, state Hungary,
up country.
up country, Sátoralja Ujhely, and through him they arranged everything. But unfortunately, Danny broke his leg in a bicycle accident, and his leg was in cast.
Right.
And I didn't let them take off about 6 weeks because I know that we have to escape. And then they were not suspicious when they see a boy with a cast. It's impossible to walk. Nobody was suspicious.
Let me just ask one question before we keep going. What made you decide that you wanted to leave?
The whole situation in Hungary got so bad with the communists and the business and everything that that would be the only salvation to come to America. And America, that was like heaven. That I had opportunity to come to America.
And
One day, I said in my store that I am not. I have to go with Danny to the hospital to let take off the cast. And we never went back. After this afternoon, we just left Budapest.
So how many people were in the store? I mean,
That was
people working with you, and
Mr. Farkas, remember? The tall guy. And I had a companion, a
Right.
business associate, and she stayed there. And then much later we heard that the government closed the store and they took away everything.
Huh.
Yeah, and
So,
but I had to say goodbye to my mother, the relatives, and that was the hardest thing, to leave home for then especially, and Eve. But we just had to go, and we left Budapest by train toward Sátoraljaújhely, which is the border city,
with Czechoslovakia?
near to. The girl accompanied us on the train, and I had to give, because of this, I had to give her a pair of diamond earrings. And we get out of the train and walked in the street, and her friend came, and he with a taxi. He asked, "Do you want to ride?" I said, "Yes, we are very tired." So we went into the taxi, and the girl went home. She left there. We hardly started when two men wanted to stop our car. Seemingly they were detectives.
No, was this still in Hungary or?
In Hungary, that was still
Okay.
in Hungary. And but the man, this chauffeur, was very clever, and he sped away. They shot after us, but luckily didn't hit us. It was very dark when we arrived at a place. It was absolutely nothing, and the chauffeur said that we have to get out quickly.
Did
And
they,
the bomb came, a bomb, that was a guide, came, and they say, come with us. I had to pay the man 3,000 forint,
the bum or the taxi driver?
the taxi driver. And then he took us behind the bush. A big crowd was waiting for us. A woman with a child on her arm, and old people, the young people. And now he said, now we start to walk. And we had to walk the whole night
So this was walking across the Czech border,
Ex-
walking into Czechoslovakia.
toward the Czech-Slovak border. And I lost my black pocketbook, my money, and some credentials. I left everything. I lost everything. We arrived in a village, and the guide took us up in the attic of a peasant's house. We had to wait until a taxi driver came, and we agreed that Emery's relative in Bratislava will pay him. And so we left. He was very nice man. We left to Košice, I think is now, to his home, and I think that he gave us something to eat. Vasap. Then he took us through the Kárpátok to Kárpátalja. The kids were very happy because it was a beautiful sight, you know, the Tatra, high mountain, on the top snow, and it was a beautiful ride there. We arrived in Bratislava to the relative, and they were not happy at all. They were terribly afraid because, you know, that was belonged to the communist regime.
They did.
They were terribly afraid that they will find us there. We thought that we can stay overnight there, but we just could, they gave us dinner, and we could stay there in 1 hour. And they brought 2 guides to us, and these 2 guys took us further. We had to take a train
Streetcar.
streetcar. They were very polite, and the streetcar and Liget Újfalu was the village where we had to get out of the streetcar. I didn't see the one guy disappeared. He was very polite, and he took one of my
Bags.
bag with all my good things in it, and he took it. So always less and less.
Right. Pocketbook,
Yes,
earrings,
yes.
bag.
And then
Didn't he go after Marika? Marika got up at the wrong stop. 'Cause one of the guys had to go back.
one guy,
Had to get off because Marika got off too early. She had to go back.
that is not important. But he stole my things. And the other guy was very good, very, very reliable. We had to walk the whole night. And he said that in another village, his wife is waiting for us with dinner and we can stay overnight. And he said, sit down here somewhere near to the river.
Oh wait. Remember, I got lost.
No, not yet, not yet.
Oh.
And then the man ran back to us, and he said that he's lost because his wife was följelentették. What is it?
He denounced him.
No,
Denounced him to the authorities.
denounced him.
Denounce. Yeah.
Denounced him to the authorities. She hardly could escape through a window. He said, and he doesn't know what to do. I said, we have to walk toward Vienna.
Annika, but before this happened, I got
And then
lost.
we walked.
No. Before we crossed over,
With,
we still were Czechoslovakia. I fell behind, and then you had to come back, and even and other guys went ahead. That
I
was still
wrote it down, but
That was just Czechoslovakia. That was Czechoslovakia.
that doesn't make any difference here or later. But when we were
No, but-
walking, I just wanted to tell that when we were walking, then you fell? No. He
I got very tired.
he threw himself on the ground.
Yeah.
And he said that he doesn't want to go any further.
That's right.
That's the
Then
That's right.
the guide and Eve came back
Right.
to us, and he said that he was terrible.
He was yelling.
Yelling. He was yelling to Danny, and he said that if you were in the army, you should go walk. If you would have 40 degree of fever, 100, 40 Celsius, 100 Fahrenheit. So he got up, and we started to walk again.
There's also the problem was that we were near bunkers, the Czech army,
Very
and we
near.
were supposed to be very quiet, and we were making
Yeah.
all this noise.
I was shouting.
And
I was shouting after him that what happened to Danny, and then he was cursing me too, not only Danny.
you were making too much noise.
Alerting
Alerting the
they
guards.
were always patrolling that area,
Right.
Russians, and we walked another night, and finally we arrived at a wooded area, and he said that go into the woods and sit down and wait for me. I am going to bring a taxi.
Okay. Another footnote. Before this happened, remember, before he went into the village, he told us to lie down in a ditch.
That's what I just
No,
said.
but you skipped over it very lightly. It was a very traumatic experience. We had to lie down in a ditch outside the village, which was lit by a single light, and a dog was barking incessantly.
Yes.
And then we were in the middle of nowhere. My mother, Eve, and I, because I was terrified, and I'm sure that everybody else was. And they were in the middle of nowhere. This guy was gone. It seemed like for hours. And afterwards, when he came back,
Yeah.
that's when we heard that he talked his way out of it. There were some people even there to arrest him, but he fainted like he was fainting like he was nuts. It was crazy.
That he didn't know what to do.
And all right, and then we went to the woods.
And then I said that we just walked toward Vienna. But we did for hours.
But with the guy took us into the
Yeah.
side of the road.
And finally, he took us into a wooded area, and he said it's on a little hill,
Yes.
and we could see the
traffic.
traffic, the Russian trucks up and down, and a peasant was far away, was tending his field. We were crying. At least I was crying like a child, because that I took my children such a terrible situation, and we don't know if the man. I doubted that the man ever will come back. But daybreak. It was daybreak. Suddenly, a taxi stopped at the same place where we were hiding.
Do you remember the mosquitoes?
The mosquitoes.
All night long.
The cloud of mosquitoes ate us.
All night.
Eve had 1 or 2 cigarettes, but that didn't help at all, and it was terrible. Put out up our coats, cover of the head, but it was terrible. Finally, we went in, got into the car, and went toward Vienna. But he said, you are not 100% safe yet, because they are the sentries at the gate,
Entrance to the
entrance to the
Vienna.
city, and we saw Russian soldiers were standing there. But luckily, they didn't stop us. We just went into Vienna, and then toward the freedom, our freedom.
Yeah, but it took us to the American
So we
sector.
went to
To the American zone. You went to the American zone in Vienna.
yes, and that was the Rothschild Hospital, where all the refugees stayed there. Rothschild Hospital, where Emery was waiting for us. Yeah, he
Oh,
didn't
was
want
there.
to pay the $100 to the guide. He didn't want to
He was a
pay.
cheapskate,
He,
He was there.
it was a big scandal in the Rothschild Hospital. Finally, he paid anyway. He was a poor guy, and I didn't know that he had no job. Not even he had no job, so he could not throw away money. And
Sure.
he rented a room for me, because I was the wife of an American citizen. Even Danny, we took Danny to the hospital. They broke his leg there.
Sounds awful.
Well, to reset it.
Reset it.
Yeah. Well,
Re-
And put a cast on it.
yeah.
Put a cast on it. But he stayed there in this hospital till he came to America.
No.
You
Oh,
didn't
well,
go. You
I
didn't.
wasn't
You
sure.
didn't go to the Goldschlaglager.
I was in the Rothschild Hospital, which was sure I was there. I used to sit next to all these. I had all kinds of experiences with this old man who was in the escape from the concentration camp and showed us soap. He had a soap made of Jews.
Yeah.
That wasn't. I went back. I was spent there. I don't remember seeing Eve in my memory. I don't remember any contact with her until much later. When we got the visa, then we were together in this some kind of a better place. But I remember spending months at the Rothschild Hospital.
I have a few months.
Yeah, after you left,
Yeah.
and I used to work, and used to have a job in the eastern sector, in the Russian sector, helping some
Don't you-
chemist making some kind of concoction.
Silver things.
No, that came later. First, it was some kind of a guy was making soap as a business, and they needed some kind of a helper. And I used to take the streetcar into the into the Soviet sector. It was
That's
interesting.
dangerous.
Sure, if you got caught, they shipped you back. So I did that first, but I remember I was at the Rothschild Hospital, and they had full of. I mean, you can imagine it was like it was an Arab marketplace. I mean, you could buy fake American cigarettes made in Hungary, to passports, gold watches, you name it. Everything that all the Jews from Eastern Europe are spending their time being a black market. Watches smuggled in, smuggled out of other places, Switzerland, smuggled
And the black market with the dollar.
everything.
And they caught one man. He was hiding $100,000 in the mattress, under the mattress. Don't you remember that?
No.
Yes, it was.
So then from Vienna, You went to Paris?
I
You go
left.
to Paris?
She went there.
I left Vienna. First, Emery.
But we got there sometime, was August of 49.
September.
September.
That was 2nd of September,
When we got there?
Yeah.
September of 49.
49.
And when did you leave for Vienna, for New York?
I left December. I left Vienna December by autobus, and I took Marika with me. You remember?
Yeah.
And we arrived at Le Havre, and we had to wait for the ship, for the boat ship,
Yeah.
the SS America, USS
Oh, boy.
America, SS America, and I stayed in Paris a few weeks. I was very happy there. The joint gave me
Joint distribution company.
a room and in a hotel, some money, and I took Marika with me. That is a that was a niece, Emery's niece. She came here with a student visa, and she wasn't entitled any help from the joint, but I got for her anyway, and shared the room with her. She left. She left Paris 10 days before me because Alex and Ilchi sent her money and the
Ticket.
And I didn't accept. Emery wanted to do the same thing, but I didn't accept because he was very stingy in Vienna. I didn't accept from him the ticket, and I said I am waiting until the joint give me the ticket, which happened in January. And
You went by boat.
I went by boat with the SS America for 5 days. It took 5 days, and during these 5 days I was in bed.
Sick?
Nauseous, sick, hungry, but I just could drink cup of tea and crackers and apple. That was my meal. And the last day I could get up, the last day, I felt better. And I saw that on the deck they played na, hogy hívják a izét? Mindenki azt játsza ilyen csörcsöknél. Játszanak a táblák. Na.
Oh, yeah, I know. Stop to think a minute. Bingo.
Bingo. We played bingo, and the man had a sack here and full with money, and he was so sure that I will win, and he was standing next to me, and suddenly the last minute a young kid won. I didn't have a penny. I needed so much the money. We arrived on 13th of January 1950 on a Friday in New York Harbor, and when I saw the Statue of Liberty, I was the happiest woman in the whole world. It was so beautiful sight, crying like mad. Emery was waiting for me, and then we took the subway. We didn't take a car, had to take the subway.
That's right.
And he took me to Belmont Avenue
In the Bronx.
in the Bronx. Had a 3.5-room apartment, furnished. That was good. That at least we were have a home. And then I found out that he doesn't work. He has no job. He wanted me to take any kind of job because I could sew, and he took me with Irene to Broadway, any women's store, women attire store. I should be a fitter. I didn't know one single word English. I didn't want to take any job, and he was very angry. In March, the joint gave me an address. I should go to Park Row 15. That was the joint place, and they gave me a job at the Qualitex Blouses and Dresses, which was at Noise Lincoln Center. Is at the place. It was about 1,200. I don't know how much. And the Park Row is way downtown, around 200 Broadway, you know. I said to myself, I am walking, could not be so big. So I walked the whole day until I arrived to the liquor and Mrs. Stevens said, "What happened? I was waiting for you in the morning." And it was afternoon that I arrived. She gave me a job as a finisher. I had to make beautiful buttonholes, and she was very satisfied with me. I said I could be a cutter, and fortunately her cutter went back to England. She didn't like it here, or had a fiancé there. Another girl wanted to take the job too, the cutting job. I had a very nice yellow shantung two-piece dress made in Budapest, you know, in our store. Shantung that didn't take too much space, you know. I could say I brought it over, and she liked it. Mrs. Stevens liked it very much, and she said that I should make a pattern from that skirt. It was a little complicated skirt, you know, but I made the pattern, and the cutter, who was a sample maker too, she couldn't sew it together. So I had to stay there and sew it also. And I hardly could manage the electric machine.
Sewing machine, yeah.
I am not used to it. It took me, I don't know, evening, till 10 o'clock in the evening I finished it. And I called Irene, that Irene should tell Emery that I am working here late and I'm coming home late. I was afraid from him. Didn't dare to tell him myself. When I arrived home, you can imagine I had to take the subway to Tremont Avenue. And from Tremont I had to walk to Belmont Avenue. And when I walked up 2 flights up, he didn't open the door. I rang the bell and I rang the bell, he didn't open the door. I didn't know what to do, but finally I decided that Alex doesn't live very far from us.
Alex is his brother.
Alex is his brother, younger brother, you know. And I went there and I talked to him and I told him what happened, that he doesn't let me. He came with me, took me back, and rang as long as he opened the door, and he gave him hell. He gave him hell. How could he do this? I didn't have a second key yet, you know. I was a greenhorn.
Right.
Very
so wait,
green.
so now when did your children arrive?
So when I started to work, I paid everything, rent, food, everything, because he didn't tell me that he is getting unemployed. I didn't know that.
Right.
I paid everything for 3 months.
So now when
Not
did
3 months, until 6 months. Then finally he got a job as a night watch. Night
watchman here?
night watchman. And he gave me the first $10 then.
Ooh.
Yes.
So when did Eve and my father arrive?
Yes, they arrived
July
5th of July. 5th of July. And I never forget that terrible rainstorm
summer. Right?
that you could tell how did you come from
Well, you
Europe. You could tell that
Well, we flew.
Well,
the flu. He could
but
tell you better.
tell about that. That's another story. But tell about your meeting them at the airport or whatever. I mean,
Not the airport. They brought them from the airport to the city, but I don't remember.
42nd Street.
42nd Port Authority, maybe.
No, across the street from the Grand Central Station. Used to be the bus from the airport.
So they brought them in
42nd
to the
and
city.
Lexington.
Yes. So you can imagine how happy I was when my children were with me.
How long had it been since you had seen them?
I didn't see them since December. I left December 1949, and they came July 15. But I wanted to tell you that Danny could stay at the Rothschild until they left Vienna. But Eve was taken to the Goldschlag lager, from the Rothschild to Goldschlag lager, where all the kids were staying who knew where they will go, you know.
In other words, the people who were at the Rothschild Hospital had the basic refugees waiting for something to happen. Until they got visas to go somewhere,
Yeah.
they couldn't move from there. Once you get visas, then you go to this other place, which was better, smaller, and those people had the future.
Yes, but what happened there, Eve fell from the stairs and she hit her back terribly. She was very sick then. So when you and Eve arrived in France, in Paris, she could not go sightseeing. You went alone.
And
That's what she told me just now, because she was very sick with her back. And finally they came,
Right. Flying Tigers Airline.
the Flying Target airline, and they wanted to land in Ireland and couldn't because of the terrible weather, and they were circling.
No. But I mean, we landed in Shannon, Ireland. This is a propeller
right.
age, and so they had to stop in Shannon, Ireland, and then they landed in Nova Scotia.
But as I heard that the plane couldn't land because
But
of,
it did.
the fog or the wet weather or
Well,
something.
maybe for a while, but in the end it did. And then it
Yeah.
landed in Nova Scotia, and we had our summer clothes on. It was like, it was freezing. The first time I saw people eating shredded wheat. It looked like broom. Like a broom that you use outside. It looked like broom. So these crazy Americans eat this broom stuff. I remember that, and I remember it was being very cold. We had the summer clothes on in this Nova Scotia. We felt like it was winter. And then arrived in Budapest, in New York, and it was the funniest feeling was it was the first time we had experienced humidity, and it was like swimming, in underwater. It was absolutely awful when we got off the plane. And
So then, how did you took them home by subway or by?
Yeah.
no,
No?
taxi.
Yes, we went.
Yes, ma'am.
That I don't remember.
I remember that. It was pouring rain, and I remember a taxi.
Oh.
And I remember seeing the Bronx, with all these newspapers flying around. I was totally depressed about it. My God, I had this, when you're young, you dream about the United States and all these sidewalks plated in gold and everything. Well, it was very bare, and it was, I remember newspapers all over this
Flying around.
flying around.
Yeah. Difficult times.
I think that's.
Emery was a big boss, played a big boss throughout Eve, throughout me. Eva but Emery's got a family nearby, a very nice family where she stayed then. She never came back to
You
live.
moved out.
Danny,
We're done.
she moved out. Danny stayed there. How long, Danica?
No,
You stayed there
until
until
we moved to Forest Hills.
No. Oh,
No, moved to Forest Hills. Then I was drafted in the army.
yeah, to drafted, yes, in the army.
So
In,
But Eve stayed with another family, and she was working.
so where do you live now?
I live in Queens Forest Hills. At that time, we used to live at the 62nd Avenue Drive, but they built there 3 high-riser, and we had to move to the next street. So I lived there about 34 years.
So, my last question. Do you feel like it was worth it? Was it worth it?
Very much, very much. I am extremely happy in America, and was always, despite all my troubles with Emory and all my hardship with the English language and the city. It was a very hard, difficult job, you know. And I always said that I just love America. I was always happy. When I became American citizen 2 years later, I was studying like mad at the Belmont Avenue apartment still. And I went up to the roof, and I was studying there Saturday, Sunday when I didn't work. And I was sitting there and studied the Constitution and everything. When the time came to become American citizen, I remember that the judge asked if it would be a war and you should be drafted, would you go to the army? I said, gladly. And I meant it. I meant it. I would have been very happy in the army. Yes. So I was a cutter. I got the cutter job, and I was very, very happy with the cutter job. I took Eve to the same place, and she was a sample maker, wonderful, fast worker. And she made a friendship with Ilse, who is her lifetime friend. Ilse was the niece of the owner, Mrs. Stevens. And that's the way she met Ed.
Ed.
Yeah. And this is the story.
Well, you had other. Where did you go? Where did you go to work for Kirkland?
That was yes. I was working 1.5, 2 years at the Mrs. Stevens as a cutter, and one day she was the nicest person, like a friend, and the next day she was like a mad woman, a nervous wreck. With everybody, it was terrible. And I said to myself that I can get job on every finger because I was such a very good cutter. But I got another one at Delbo on the Madison Avenue. That was a beautiful store. And the same time, Joint offered me a job too.
Oh.
But I wanted to take this job at the Madison Avenue. And I asked them, is this a permanent job? They said yes. But a few days later, somebody told me that the cutter got married and she is on her honeymoon and she will come back.
Uh-huh.
But they liked my work,
So
and they kept me there, and they wanted to make me as a sample maker, cutter and sample maker. And I said, I am sorry, I am not taking it, because the electric machine, I couldn't handle it yet. So I left that wonderful job, and I could never get another decent job in my trade because I found out that the women cutter is not allowed to work with cutting machines in New York State. That was the law. So I couldn't get another job because before I cut only just with scissors.
Here we go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, my last question is, can you think about what was your guiding force that sustained you through all of the things you had to go through, and what sort of made you keep going and pursue your goals?
First of all, my children, you know, that I had to work because of my children, because myself, and because I loved America and the American way of life. I loved very much, and that I was able to even to help my mother. I sent packages, that I was in a situation that I could help my mother and my brother to bring him over to, and to me is the only way and the best way to live in America. And that's why I worked. I had to work because I had to.
No choice. You had no choice.
There was no choice. I had to pay everything, the half of everything, and I didn't want to retire. I worked 5 more years. Every year I had to apply, and for another year, so 5 years, because I worked till 70, age of 70. That time, people could work just till age of 65, and I didn't want to stay home with Emery the whole day. I was working. Got up at 5:30 in the morning. Was traveling 1.5 hours one way. Worked 8 hours and traveling 1.5 hours back, and then cooking, and Saturday, Sunday cleaning and washing, and I still love that life. Yes, this way of life. Yes, freedom and everything, you know. But I'm still very happy in America.
That's good to hear.
Is it
That's
still on?
the end.
Is it still on?
Okay.